let's dive right into this explainer. Picture this. You're staring out at the vast, totally unforgiving expanse of the Northwest Providence Channel down in the Bahamas. It's 1961. You're surrounded by just thousands of dancing whitecaps rolling across this deep, endless blue ocean. And somewhere out there, among all those waves, something catches the eye of a sailor on a passing freighter. So, that sailor? His name was Nikolaos Spachidakis, the second officer of a Greek freighter called the Captain Theo. He was just scanning the waters when he spots this tiny, nearly invisible speck bobbing among the ocean waves. Now, his seasoned eyes knew immediately that this single dot just didn't belong. I mean, it was too large to be a random piece of debris, but way, way too small to be a boat that had traveled this far out to sea. So he alerts the captain, they change course, and guys, what they found absolutely shocked the world. They pull up alongside this nearly invisible speck, and what do they find? An 11-year-old girl named Terry Jo Duperrault. And she had been drifting completely alone on a tiny, fragile cork float for a staggering 84 hours. Think about that for a second. That is 3.5 days out on the open ocean with absolutely zero food, no water, and no shelter from the blistering sun. It's just an unimaginable test of human endurance. But to understand how a young girl ended up in the middle of the ocean all by herself, we've got to rewind. Let's flash back to 5 days earlier. Terry Jo's dad, Dr. Arthur Duperrault, had chartered this absolutely beautiful 60-foot luxury yacht named the Bluebell for a dream family vacation from Florida to the Bahamas. On board, you had Dr. Duperrault, his wife Jean, their 3 kids, and the ship's captain, Julian Harvey. Harvey was this handsome, highly decorated World War II pilot, and he brought along his new wife, Mary Dane. By all accounts, the first few days were just idyllic. But on the journey home, that dream was violently shattered. So on the 5th night of the voyage, the trip turns into a literal nightmare. Right around midnight, young Terry Jo is awoken by screaming and stamping on the deck right above her cabin. She goes up to investigate and stumbles into this horrific scene, discovering her mother and brother lying dead in a pool of blood. When she asks Captain Harvey what was happening, he actually strikes her and sends her below deck. Shortly after that, the yacht begins taking on water because Harvey was intentionally scuttling the ship. He abandons the sinking vessel in a dinghy. And in this truly miraculous act of survival instinct, Terry Jo manages to untie a small cork float from the cabin top just before the Bluebell sinks completely beneath the waves. And suddenly, she's left entirely alone in the pitch black. The truly horrific reality here is that this was a totally premeditated massacre. Captain Harvey's violent rampage was driven by just pure greed. See, he had recently taken out a $20,000 double indemnity life insurance policy on his brand new bride. His plan was to murder her at sea and collect the payout, a payout that actually doubled if she died accidentally. Investigators later realized Harvey actually had a whole history of suspicious, highly profitable shipwrecks. It's believed that Dr. Duperrault witnessed Harvey murdering his wife, which basically forced Harvey to slaughter the entire family to eliminate all witnesses. Now, what's really interesting here is the stark contrast between the 2 stories they presented to the authorities. Captain Harvey was rescued after just 1 day, and he wove this elaborate, heroic tale to the Coast Guard. He claimed a sudden squall had dismasted the Bluebell, pierced the fuel tank, and started this massive, uncontrollable fire. He said he tried to save everyone, but the ship just sank too fast. And for a few days, the authorities completely believed the decorated war hero. But Terry Jo's reality totally dismantled his alibi. She accurately reported that there was no storm, absolutely no broken mast, and no fire. Just a brutal murder scene. The moment the truth finally caught up to Julian Harvey is incredibly tense. He was actually sitting right there in a Coast Guard interrogation room, still spinning his lies, when a guardsman bursts in with breaking news. A freighter had just pulled an 11-year-old girl alive from the sea. Cornered, Harvey reportedly stammers out, "Oh my God, why that's wonderful." He quickly excuses himself from the interview, drives out to a motel room he'd rented under a fake name, and commits suicide the very next day. The truth had won out, all thanks to a young girl's incredible survival. It's an absolutely harrowing true crime story for sure, but the narrative really doesn't end there. I want to pivot our focus for a second because Terry Jo's incredible survival left a legacy that goes way beyond bringing a killer to justice. We really have to ask ourselves, how did this one 11-year-old's 84-hour nightmare fundamentally change the world we live in today? Well, to answer that, we've got to look at a highly surprising historical fact about maritime safety. Prior to 1962, going all the way back to the days of the Titanic, Life jackets, buoyant apparatuses, and life rafts were traditionally painted white, gray, or blue. Even the military used non-contrasting colors. So that cork float that saved Terry Jo's life, it was completely white. And this color choice was a massive, incredibly deadly oversight. During the official inquiry, the rescuing master of the Captain Theo, Captain Stylianos Kotsodontis, gave some really critical testimony. He stressed to the Coast Guard the extreme difficulty his crew had in seeing a white raft bobbing on a white-capped sea. Terry Jo's float was almost perfectly camouflaged among the ocean waves. The fact that she was spotted at all was just a sheer miracle of chance. So the crucial point is that a massive systemic change was needed immediately, and color theory actually provided the answer. Enter international orange. In traditional color theory, orange sits completely opposite to blue, which gives it the highest possible contrasting value against the water. And international orange isn't just your standard run-of-the-mill safety orange. It's a very specific, deep, reddish tone scientifically designed to immediately draw the human eye and set an object completely apart from its surroundings. Well, the Coast Guard listened to Captain Koutosandis. In their final investigation report on the Bluebell incident, they explicitly cited the difficulty of spotting Terry Jo as the main catalyst for systemic change. And in 1962, it officially became law. The Coast Guard amended multiple federal codes, strictly requiring that all buoyant apparatuses, life floats, and life rafts be painted international orange. They specifically standardized it under Federal Standard 595. And this brilliantly illustrates the lasting legacy of that 1962 mandate today. On modern safety of life at sea equipment, like those big electric lifeboats, this highly visible orange is an absolute industry standard. From massive cruise ships all the way down to small commercial fishing vessels, the gear meant to save you in an emergency is painted this exact color to ensure you are literally never invisible on the water. Let's move on and see how this builds, because this standard actually ripples across other fields too. There are incredibly strict formulas for different environments. Aerospace orange is a slightly lighter tone, famously used by NASA for their astronaut launch entry suits, the ones they affectionately call pumpkin suits. But engineering and maritime orange remains that deeper, vivid red orange. It's scientifically optimized for one specific purpose: maximum visibility against the vast, dark blue of the open ocean. Terry Jo Duperrault, who the media back then called the sea waif, endured an absolutely unthinkable trauma. But her incredible resilience did so much more than just expose a sociopathic killer and bring closure to her family's story. It directly forced a critical, systemic change in maritime law. Because she survived, safety regulations were completely rewritten, and a global standard was established that has undoubtedly saved countless lives in the decades since. It really puts things into perspective, doesn't it? We interact with safety regulations all the time without ever knowing the heavy price paid to write them. So the next time you step onto a ferry, a cruise ship, or even just a friend's boat, and you happen to notice a bright international orange life jacket hanging on the wall, will you remember the incredibly brave 11-year-old girl whose 84-hour fight to live gave it that exact color? Thank you so much for exploring this remarkable piece of history with me in this explainer today.